Luke 13, verses 10 to 17. On the Sabbath, Jesus was teaching in one of the synagogues, and a woman was there who had been crippled by a spirit for 18 years. She was bent over and could not straighten up at all. When Jesus saw her, he called her forward and said to her, "Woman, you are set free from your infirmity." Then he put his hands on her immediately, and she straightened up and praised God. Indignant because Jesus was healing in the Sabbath, the synagogue ruler said to the people, "There are 6 days for work, so come and be healed on those 6 days, not on the Sabbath." The Lord answered him, "You hypocrite, doesn't it teach on the Sabbath you untie your ox or donkey from the stall and you lead it out and give it water? Then should not this woman, a daughter of Abraham, whom Satan has kept bound for 18 years, be set free on the Sabbath day?" When he said this, all his opponents were humiliated, but the people were delighted with all the wonderful things that he was doing. Interesting, the good and the bad. Okay, so we've got a woman healed on a Sunday. And if you look in Exodus 20, you've got Sunday, and it says Sunday. There's a lot of rules in the original one about not doing this, not doing that, etc. And the Pharisees tend to keep absolutely to the rules. The rules were the rules, and there was no grace at all. So they followed the legal setup that was absolutely clear. So that for the other thing to notice is that it wasn't just that the woman had a kind of physical problem. She had a spiritual problem that meant that she was bowed over for 18 years. Now, Jesus knew it was not physical. There was a discernment. Now, we have to beware of this, that if we see someone with a physical problem, it may not be a physical problem. It might be an evil spirit. We don't kind of talk about that much, and there isn't seen so much in the UK. And when I've been in places like Uganda and that, the evil kind of spirits and things do seem to be much more dominant. And it's quite an intriguingly different setup. But if we saw that, we'd say, "Oh yeah, she needs kind of physical healing." But there is a discernment we need if that ever comes up. But I mean, who knows? Who knows? It's interesting that she didn't ask for anything. Jesus just called her forward. And immediately Jesus said, "You're set free from your infirmity." Then she put her hands on her and they praised God. Okay, let's look at it a bit more detail. Well, there's 2 people that we need to think about. There's the legalistic leader, an indignant man, because Jesus broke the rules. And you can't do that on a Sunday. So he was very strict. And what was his motive? You try to follow the law by the letter. And the second thing, of course, was it was envy. Jesus was taking over his meeting. He was supposed to be in charge. How dare he kind of take over my meeting? Look, it's my job. I decide what's happening in this meeting. No one else. Jesus knew the law, and he knew that even the animals were let out on a Sunday, and they were fed properly. So he really started on the whole thing. Goodness me, what are you doing? You know, if they let the animals out, surely I can do good on a Sunday. So they could be ministered to. Now, it's interesting. I think I've told you this story before about my friend who was in a very a brethren's church, which was a very, very strict, a brethren thing. And he was in it for a long period of time. And before he was baptized in the Spirit, he was telling me about what happened. And I think I've told some people that he was in a meeting and he realized that a colleague was with him. And you know what? He was sinning. He was wearing brown shoes to the meeting. Can you imagine it? Can you imagine it? Wearing brown shoes to the meeting. So he said to him, brother, I will not be able to take communion with you next week if you're wearing brown shoes. Legalistic? Yeah, and that's absolutely true. And then when he was baptized in the Spirit, he said, I can't believe what rubbish, what utter twaddle, what ridiculous situation. Could I have said such utter rubbish? And I think the leader was in this position. So we have a legalistic leader with envy. But Jesus knew the law, and he told the leader that. And the leader was humiliated. But his people rejoiced. They saw something else. Okay, let's just let's think about the woman for a minute. Notice that Jesus did not ask her whether she wanted to be healed. Normally he did. Jesus called her forward. And he did it. He immediately healed her without a word. I free you from your infirmity. And then he touched her immediately and she was healed. Now, why did he do that? It's totally different. And it would seem, if you look at it clearly, it's a very unusual approach. Now, she was probably shunned by everyone because she had this infirmity. If you were a Jew then, if you had something wrong with you, you were kind of bottom of the pile. So probably she was shunned. It looked as though she still had a faith in God, but probably came in late and sat right at the back. And she was probably lonely because nobody really thought much of her. She had few friends. She probably felt worthless, which was probably the response. So she was right at the back of the meeting, and Jesus saw this. Jesus discerns, and he discerns things in us and discerns, and we just don't know. But Jesus knew, like he knows the intimacy of us, like I was talking about last time, the hairs of your head, the intimacy he knows you with. He knows so much and cares for us so much. So he set her free. He can do it for everyone, even when they don't ask, because he sensed that if he asked her, she said, oh, no, not me, no. There was no conversation. It was immediate. Suddenly, she was the center of the conversation. She was the center of attention. Suddenly, it wasn't the leader of the meeting who was brimming with anger because the meeting had been taken over, but suddenly this woman who was sitting at the back and was called forward was the center of attention. The people were delighted with what Jesus did, and they went out, I think it says at the end, with all the wonderful things he was doing. So you've got the contrast of the legalistic doing, don't want to change we don't want to remove the pews from the church. They've been there 300 years. We don't want to remove the pews, this kind of legalistic view. But God says, no. He breaks in. He sees the woman. He sees immediately her need. So he doesn't talk to her. He calls her forward. And I think she must have had her head down and said, I don't want to go out the front. But she went and he touched her. And he felt for her. He could see exactly her position. And one feels at the end, she was rejoicing with the others. And there was a spirit of joy in that place where this woman was set free, while the only person who was an angry man was the leader, who all his authority was taken away, and he hated that. That's it, basically, the story of the leader and the woman.